Hello everyone and welcome back. We're going to be talking today about Blazor. I did a talk in the CodeCampSDQ conference last Saturday and I have gotten a couple requests to do the same talk in English, so here we go. Before I move forward, I want to thank the organizer of CodeCamp. They did an amazing job, and even if we had some connection issues, some audio issues, we were able to improvise the best we could, and I think that it worked out really well at the end. So thank you for all your hard work, and let's start. So Blazor, we're going to be talking about what is Blazor, why Blazor is, in my opinion, the future, and why every .NET developer should know about Blazor. So if you develop in .NET, you really need to know about Blazor. Uh, my name is Jose Colombier. Sorry. Okay. So my name is Jose Colombier. I'm an electrical engineer. I have been developing a Windows application for around 8 years. And lately, in the last 3-4 years, I've been doing a lot of Xamarin and Azure for iOS and Android. And why am I telling you guys all of this? Because I by no means consider myself a web developer. Even if I have done a few projects in ASP.NET Web Forms and MVC, my background has never been a web developer. So why, if I have never been a web developer, I'm so excited about Blazor? Hopefully by the end of this talk, I answer this question. So let's review quickly the agenda that we're going to follow today. We're going to talk about what is Blazor, is JavaScript dead, another Silverlight. Those are the common questions that we get all the time when we talk about the Blazor framework. We're going to talk about the two modes of hosting of Blazor, Blazor Server versus Blazor WebAssembly. We're going to talk about the performance on Blazor, reusable components and JavaScript Interop, so about the design and the interoperability that Blazor has. We're going to talk about the future of Blazor, and this is a point that really excites me, so we're going to get to that. And I will leave this with some links about the community, how you can interact with the community and other resources. So what is Blazor? So before we start answering directly what is Blazor, we need to understand how the web development works nowadays. So pretty much you have a server. It could be in your house, it could be a Raspberry Pi, it could be in a data center, but either way you have some hardware that is running some code. It could be Java, it could be Node, it could be Go, PHP, or of course .NET. And that's not enough. You need to get that content to the browser so your users can see it, so you can program the UI. You have to code the UI, and this is most of the time done in JavaScript. So it will be with one of these frameworks. It could be Angular, it could be React, Vue, TypeScript. So even if using some type of transpiler like TypeScript, you're always going to be inside the JavaScript runtime and the application will feel like JavaScript. And then you have this disconnection between the programming language that is running on the server and the programming language that is running on the browser. And I have always felt that that's really frustrating, because why cannot reuse my current skills, my C# knowledge, my .NET libraries in the browser? Why is just this whole ecosystem of browser development just JavaScript? And there is also the point that all teams of developers or job of .NET development is not a completely full stack without knowing some type of JavaScript framework. So I have always feel that we have all this industry developing new features in different programming language, and we have not been using that to the full extent, because for example we couldn't run it on the browser. So, and it doesn't have to be C#, Python, any other language which will be able, if you are already proficient on that, to use it in wherever you need. So that's where WebAssembly comes in place. So WebAssembly, for those who don't know, is like a binary format, it's a binary representation, like intermediate language that the browser understands. So we can compile any programming language to that middle tier, let's say like that, to that binary representation, and the browser can compile it and run it, can understand it. So that opens a whole world of possibility. So that's open that you can use Python, Java, C#, anything that you need on the browser. Think about that. Like that's the future. That's crazy. And then the great thing about this is all modern browsers supported. So Firefox, Chrome, Safari, all of them are running WebAssembly. So that's where Blazor comes in. Blazor, and let's answer this question, is a single page application framework for building interactive web app in C#. Think about that for a second. You can use your current knowledge on C# and program for the web. So when every time we think about a new framework, we are feeling like overwhelmed. Okay, why do I care about this? Why isn't that I have to learn a lot of new things? Well, no, if you are a C# developer, you have the complete .NET ecosystem at your disposal, something that you are used to already. You know how to read a file, you know how to string concatenate something. You have all those tools in your hand. So if you see Blazor sit on top of .NET, that type is sit on top of WebAssembly, that sits on top of JavaScript, that modifies the DOM. So everything, you can become a complete full stack developer. So all your validation rules that you do on your server, you can do it in the client without changing a line of code. So mind blowing. You can also say that the performance is almost native, because again, all those modern browsers already know how to read that WebAssembly. So if you are able to compile to that binary representation, to that intermediate language, you are good to go. Then we have all the toolings that we are used to, like Visual Studio. I don't know you guys, but I have done projects like in C++, in PHP, and one thing that I have always struggled is not having the Visual Studio tooling at my disposal. That is the one that I know, the one that I feel comfortable. And again, sometimes I've even done C++ on Visual Studio, and I feel like doing C#. You have all your libraries, all the reusable libraries that you have built for yourself. You have all your nuggets for all those crazy community that have so much functionality at your hand. You have it here in the Blazor. So, and for those one who has this concern about security, WebAssembly is running in the same sandbox that JavaScript is running. So the same security, the same benefits, the same disadvantages that JavaScript has, Blazor has. Nothing more, nothing else. So you don't have direct access to a file system or anything. You are completely in the same sandbox as JavaScript. And if you use ASP.NET Web Forms or MVC, you will love Blazor, because Blazor is web form without the postback. So that's amazing. So JavaScript is dead. So JavaScript is one of those languages that you even love it or hate it. And there is a lot of controversy of people because it's not a strong type, or people doesn't like JavaScript. But JavaScript is a language that has been around like in forever, and it has a lot of stable library, a lot of stable fan base. So definitely, JavaScript is not dead by any means, and if you are a JavaScript developer, please feel free to use it. This Blazor is revolutionary, but it's for .NET developers, people who want to use the current skill in C# and web development. And again, the other part is that Blazor comes with JavaScript interoperability as a first-class citizen. So even like the debugging in JavaScript inside Blazor, you even feel it like a C#. So it's a great way to develop web application if you already have your current C# knowledge. So another Silverlight, that's another common question, and I see that I leave here otro in Spanish instead of in English, but let's come back. I will fix that in the slide later on. So it's another Silverlight. To start talking about Silverlight, we have to think about web interactive app for developing uh, before. Before we have to use Flash to develop this rich interactive web app, but Flash was extremely difficult, a lot of moving part, a lot of part to synchronize, and that's when Silverlight came as a solution for that problem that Flash was presenting to us. But it comes with a plugin architecture. So as Apple killed a plugin in the browser, Microsoft didn't have another choice than to kill Silverlight. And actually, last Friday, there was 30 days before Silverlight reached the end of support. So if you have a Silverlight application nowadays, you even have to migrate it, or you have to find another solutions. So why is this not going to happen to Blazor? Because WebAssembly has been already adopted as the default web standard language together with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. There is no plugin, so it's already supported for all the modern browsers. It's in the same sandbox as JavaScript, and it just works. So let's review the two modes that Blazor has to hosting their application: Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly. So in Blazor WebAssembly, everything runs in the browser, and in Blazor server, everything is running on the server, but through a SignalR connection, there are updates to the UI being sent. So the processing happens on the server, and then very efficient, there is a HTML sent back to the browser to display the UI. So let's start with WebAssembly direct first because it's the new kid on the college, but we're gonna talk about server later. That is the one that we have more apps on production. So Blazor WebAssembly. So we have WebAssembly on the browser and we have Blazor WebAssembly, and in this hosting model, the application is running directly on WebAssembly on the client. So things about that we have to think about this. The application needs to download everything to the browser. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all the .NET DLLs and the .NET runtime, because the amazing thing that Microsoft did here, it was when WebAssembly showed up, they compiled the .NET runtime to WebAssembly. That way we can run all our codes, all our DLLs inside the browser through that .NET runtime. So there is no server need. Everything is running locally in the browser, so you don't need to connect to the server unless you have a database or some place that you need to get data or you need to get any interaction, and for that we do like the traditional ways of doing a REST service, a web API. And the other great thing is like WebAssembly, you can deploy it as a static file and it can be hosted like in technology to host a static website like Azure Storage, a static website. So let's talk about the pros and cons of Blazor WebAssembly. The pro, that is always a pro and a con, is strong on the client. So this is great for performance, but if you need to run some really heavily intensive resource consuming app like machine learning, image processing, the client might not have every resource they need. They might not have all the memory. They might not have all the CPU that is needed. So it's a pro because the performance is almost native, but it's also a con, and we'll get to that. So again, performance is almost native because if you are compiling to that intermediate language, the browser knows how to read it, knows how to execute it. We have offline support. Again, we don't need to connect to the server if you are doing something that is just running locally. That's it. There is no server needed. So again, no server needed. So, and all modern browsers supported. So Safari, Firefox, Chrome, all of modern browsers support WebAssembly. Again, is the for web standard. Let's say the cons runs on the client. Again, if you need some intensive computation happen, the client might not have all the resources. It's limited to the browser capabilities. So again, you are running in the sandbox that JavaScript is running, so you don't have access to nothing else. And of course, we have a bigger file download. We need to bring to the server all our DLLs, all our HTML, all CSS, all JavaScript, everything. And no secrets can be stored in the application, so you cannot be putting your connection string, you cannot put a API secret key or anything like that, because it's really easy to access. Everything is running locally to access to your application, decompile or something, and get access to all your sensitive information. And all browsers versions do not support it, so if you have like Internet Explorer 9, you won't be able to run it there, and this is in my opinion, not a big deal, but if you are like a banking institution that need to support everyone, you do need to run in all versions browser. So let's talk about Blazor Server. Blazor Server does all the processing on the server, and through a SignalR connection, it sends all the UI updates to the browser. So pretty much Blazor Server is a ASP.NET Core server with the Blazor app, and it contains the .NET Core runtime and the communication with the UI happening using SignalR. So we can define that like events going to the server and UA updates sent back to the browser. So let's quickly talk about what is SignalR for those who don't know. SignalR is an application for bilateral communication. So you can know where the connection one-to-one, one-to-many is happening. You get notification when one client get connected, when one client get disconnected, when an update need to happen, and it's really efficient, and it has a lot of protocol, but the one that is being used here is WebSocket. So there is an open connection of WebSocket that is really minimal, but it's always listening to the changes. So every event on the that it needs to happen is being sent to the server process, and then sends the HTML or the UI updates back to the browser. So let's see this in action. let's take a look at this example. So we have a counter here, we have a button, and every time we click the button, we change the text to bold. So if we take a look at what's happening on the elements, we see that the only thing that is being updated when we click is the font weight of bold, nothing else. So this is so efficient because when the button gets clicked, this event is sent to the server, and the server has already a copy of your DOM that it does a diff of what changed, and it only sends back that small part is being changed. So if you do that in another post back where the whole page refreshes, you will see everything like that in pink. But right here, it's just that small, really small difference. So again, kudos to the Microsoft team for this efficient way to communication, because it really does things really performance. So, and let's go a little more in deep. If we see here the binary message that is being sent back, and this message is by any means meant to be human readable, but if you see this WebSocket, the binary message that is going sent back and forward, first thing is 229 byte. That is by no means a bigger payload, and there is like a JSON representation where you see that what is being sent from the server back is just the font weight bold. So that's the efficiency of Blazor. They have a copy of your DOM, and you do a change, it send that to the server, it gets processed, compare the new one to the old one, and only send the difference, and that's the only update that is happening on the browser. So again, it's crazy great. So let's come back to the pros and cons of Blazor server. Again, from the server, and this again will be a pro and a con, and we'll get to it. If it's wrong on the server, you have at your disposal the whole net framework, everything that you need. You are not limited to the browser capability. Of course, it loads faster because it doesn't have to load all the .NET runtime, DLL, HTML, JavaScript. You only have to send back the HTML that the page need to load. There is no WebAssembly needed, so if you need to support all browser like a banking institution, you definitely don't need to have WebAssembly there. You have again the full .NET framework at your disposal, and you can keep secret connection strings, so you can have your database server exactly in the same server as your Blazor server app, and you can connect. No one can access that server because that's your own hardware, so you definitely can keep secrets, API key secrets, connection string, everything. So cons, you need server. So again, you need to pay for a server. It's not something that you ship to the client and you're good to go. You need to pay for a server, maintain the server, patch the server, update the server, and everything else. There is no offline support because you need to have that SignAlarm WebSocket connection alive all the time to be listening for all those updates, for all those events. There is of course bigger latency than WebAssembly for all the SignAlarm connection, but it's not slow by any means. We have several Blazor application production, and again the Blazor WebAssembly will be fast because it's running right there on the client, but the Blazor server by no means is slow. So let's talk about when to use Blazor server or Blazor WebAssembly, and this would be nice if we could be interactive, but pretty much it's like if you need performance, if you're doing a game that is going to be running in the computer, of course you need WebAssembly because the performance is almost native. And one nice example that is not even a game is Try.net. Try.net is a platform for learning C# and .NET that Microsoft have, and is powered by WebAssembly. If you see, you are running code directly on the browser, and they are executed and show it in the console. There is no server need, everything is running that right in the browser, so the performance is amazing, and this is a great example of the capabilities that this framework can give us. So if you need something that have online support, if you are in an area that you know that the reception is bad and you're gonna lose, you need to work offline and everything, of course this one is another scenario for Blazor WebAssembly. If the server is not running on .NET, you might be having a server that is running PHP, Java, or some other technology. That one is also a great candidate for Blazor WebAssembly because you don't need to have your server on .NET. But if you need server resources, if you're doing some image processing, if you're doing connecting to directly to the database, or to doing some machine learning, you cannot guarantee that your client has all the resources that you need. So in this case, Blazor server will be a better candidate. So need to support all browsers. Again, banking companies are the best example for this. You need to support everyone. So in this case, it has to be Blazor server because Blazor WebAssembly is not supported for every browser out there. And let's say if you need to create interactive web apps. So the answer is both. In this case, both Blazor server and Blazor WebAssembly are great candidates to develop interactive web apps. So let's continue. We talk about performance, about the great diff mechanism that Blazor server has for the sending UI bugs, how they keep a copy of the DOM and how they compare and they just send you the quick difference, how the signal are is really efficient. But I would like to say in the performance part two more things. The first one, Blazor server. Let's talk about Blazor server at a scale that because Blazor WebAssembly the performance is almost native because everything is running on the browser. But in Blazor server, the Microsoft did some load testing for the latency about less than 200 milliseconds on the 1 click by second. And with one CPU and 3.5 gigabyte, they test more than 5,000 users and the performance didn't suffer any degradation. And with a server of 4 CPU and 4 gigabyte of memory, 20,000 concurrent users. So think about that. Is definitely a great performance, and the primary bottleneck is memory. So of course, this is a simple application. Every application is gonna take more memory depending of your use case of what everything you are storing and so on. But I do believe that's amazing. And because it have a Azure SignalR because it have a SignalR connection that it needs some type of stickiness, the sorry, highly recommended to use Azure SignalR service. Azure SignalR service is already configured to scale and is pretty much 2 clicks on your Azure portal to configure that and you're good to go. It will handle, it will scale out and down depending of your needs. So let's talk about the design patterns and the architecture of Blazor. Blazor is completely based on reusable components. So there is a lot of discussion that is definitely trying to have the web form replacement like the same architecture about you are component your complete UI based on other components. And if you check here, we have one component that is the navigation, second component is this card view, and third component is the order. So all those components are reusable in different parts of your application. So you can, and the other thing is like the composition of component. One component can host another component, so we have a parent child. So think about that. We can, in our same application, in different part of application, we can reuse our components. We can put those components in a Razor library and ship it and reuse it in another application, and we can even do templates. And there is a great article, I think that is Michael Washington, I'm not completely sure right now, where he talk about advanced templating in Blazor. So it's sending a template as a parameter of another template. So it's hard to visualize that in your head, but think about that. It's like we can do a complete CMSS, like another WordPress in Blazor. That's the capability that Blazor gives us, and it's amazing. We talk about the JavaScript Interop because definitely one of the things that we most love about this is that we are able to use C# in the browser, but there are so many libraries of JavaScript already in production, already stable, already tested for so many years. So Blazor can definitely invoke JavaScript function from the .NET method and the .NET methods from JavaScript function. And it's pretty simple. I'm going to show you a quick walkthrough. So we have this JavaScript file in our asset, and let's call it Blazor Interop, and with that one we just need to reference it in our host if it's in our host page or our index depending if it's server or if it's WebAssembly. And after that, let's say that the function only have this show alert JavaScript function. After that, we only need to inject the JS runtime and call it. That's it. That's how simple it is to interact with JavaScript. And in this case, we are sending a message, but we're not expecting any response. But we can send parameters, receive parameters, send objects, receive objects. So it's up to us as we can do anything here. So JavaScript Interop is a first-class citizen in the Blazor world. So let's get to the fun part and what I'm more excited about. So we talk about Blazor server. we talk about WebAssembly, but we can also in the WebAssembly hosted as a PWA, and that comes with a nice set of features. In that case, we can have offline support. We can have our application in our home screen and taskbar as appearing as a native app, so it looks like it's installed. We can have push notification, and not only that, there are a couple of experiments happening in the future about .NET rendering to Electron or WebView, and the difference is like in the PWA we're still limited to the sandbox that the browser has, but in Electron comes with a different set of APIs that allows you to access the file system and allow to do more things. So we are pretty much having a desktop native app through Electron, and there are the mobile binding that it allows to use Blazor on mobile. So think about that. Blazor have the capability to be on Windows and Linux and Mac and Android, iOS, everywhere. So let's quickly get out of the slide for a second and we will gonna come back to it. But I have here a quick CodeCamp demo application, nothing crazy, just a simple, but we have here the mobile bindings for the mobile part of the experiment, and we have here our Blazor app, and I put it for they both need to start at the same time. Let's just double check that. Multiple start code Blazor app, perfect. So let's run it so we can see it quickly. So again, we have the web version and we will have a mobile version right beside. Let's take a look. And actually, I couldn't, due to times constraint, I couldn't show this in the CodeCamp talk. So I'm excited to be able to show it here. So both are coming. We have here web app. The Blazor app is coming up. The Android part. So right here, nothing crazy, just a simple app that is hello CodeCamp. I should have put this in English as well. But let's wait for the mobile part. Hello CodeCamp. And right here, let's put it as a PWA. So if we click here, open Blazor app, we have it here. And if you see show on our taskbar, we have it right here. And it looks as a Windows app. So I don't know about you guys, but I think that this is amazing. It's a single code base, a single framework deployed to Windows, Mac, Linux, mobile. I'm not a mobile web developer, and I'm so excited about this. So let's continue. So again, just to recap, let me swap here. We have what we just talked about. Why we have been waiting for Blazor? Because it's C# on the browser. So we can use our current skill on the browser. We have a new developer tomorrow, and we can, if he's a .NET developer, he can be doing production code the same day. The productivity skyrocket. We can present a prototype to our clients the other day. Think about that. When we have been able to do that? The last time that we did that was when we were doing WinForms, Visual Basic 6. So the productivity increased a lot, and the training of the new developers is the learning curve is because if you have used JavaScript, there is a lot of frameworks and they change really rapidly, and we also need to have, so we need a .NET shop that you also have to have a JavaScript counterpart for the UI part. Right here, no, we need just one tech stack, .NET and C#, and we can do full stack developer, web, server, and client. So for the same reason that I just talked, this will reduce cost and maximize risk. You will be in every platform, in every place. Again, Windows, Linux, Macs, and Apple Watch, everywhere. Raspberry Pi. So the brilliance of Blazor is the future of Blazor is brilliant. I'm really excited to be part of it and to be on this train right now. So before I finish, I want to leave it with at least this repo, Awesome Blazor. It has a lot of links, a lot of Awesome Blazor resources about workshop, tutorials, video, different language, components. Great place to go and start learning about Blazor, and not only that, to get feedback from the community. I always say get involved with the community. That will make your learning curve so better. and some other resources about free components. DevExpress UI component for Blazor has some components that DevExpress is offering for free right now. And one thing about DevExpress, they have amazing support. So if you run into any issue, they will definitely be willing to help you and go with you every step of the way. I remember the first time that I have an issue with them, I sent a question and they sent me back a complete sample project with my question resolved. I was like, this is amazing. I feel like this is an extension of your company. But also we have Syfusion that it has amazing components and we have a free license for single developers. We have the Radsen Blazor components. We have Math Blazor, and we have the Blazor extension that allows to access storage, logging, SignalR, and so on, so on. And well, that concludes our talk about Blazor. I hope you guys are as excited as me. Again, I'm not a web developer. I'm really excited about the future of Blazor, and thank you for sticking with me until the end, and see you in the next video.